He thought he bought a cheap cabin until an Apache woman said she was his wife. Jack drove along the winding dirt road, the tires crunching over stones and dried leaves. The forest around him was quiet, almost unnaturally so. Pine trees reached toward the sky like watchful sentinels, and the fading light of the afternoon sun made long shadows that danced across the ground. He had bought this cabin online, thinking it was a cheap escape from the noise and chaos of the city. A place where he could breathe, away from people, away from memories he had tried so hard to forget. The cabin appeared as if it had grown out of the forest itself. Its wood was dark and weathered, covered in moss and lichen. Windows were small, and the door hung slightly off its hinges. Jack parked the truck and got out, stretching his stiff back. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of pine and earth, but it carried something else too, a subtle, almost imperceptible tension that made the hairs on his arms rise. "This is it," he muttered, forcing a smile. "Cheap cabin, big dreams." He walked up the creaking steps and pushed open the door. Dust motes swirled in the sunlight that spilled through the windows. Inside, the cabin was empty, save for old furniture covered in faded cloths and a fireplace blackened with soot. The walls were rough, and carved into them were strange symbols, circles and lines that seemed almost alive, etched with care but long forgotten. Jack frowned. "Someone lived here once, or maybe still does," he whispered to himself. He ran his hand over the symbols, feeling a strange vibration beneath his fingertips. A chill ran down his spine, but he shook it off. Old wood, old carvings, nothing more, he told himself. Yet even as he said it, the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to move, just slightly, as if watching. Jack decided to explore the rest of the cabin. Upstairs, he found a small bedroom with a single bed and a wooden chest at the foot. He opened it, expecting old blankets or junk, but found instead a bundle of papers tied with a leather string. Curious, he untied it and read the topmost page. The words were written in a language he did not recognize, but beneath them was a line in English. "The bond cannot be broken. The one who comes will awaken the past." Jack's stomach tightened. "What past?" he murmured, but before he could think more, he heard the sound of footsteps, not upstairs, not outside, but in the very room with him. He froze. A soft voice broke the silence. "You are here." Jack spun around. In the doorway, framed by the dim light from the windows, stood a woman. She was tall, with dark hair cascading over her shoulders, and eyes that seemed to see straight into his soul. Her skin was warm brown, and her presence was like fire in a cold room. She was calm, yet every movement carried strength. Who are you?" Jack asked, trying to steady his voice. "I am Amya," she said, her voice steady and certain. "And you are my husband." Jack blinked, unable to speak. His heart pounded in his chest, a mix of shock, disbelief, and an unfamiliar pull that tightened around him like a rope. "You, what?" he finally managed. "I am your wife," she repeated, stepping closer. Her eyes never left his. "This cabin was meant for us. For generations, our families have been bound together. You belong here with me." Jack shook his head, trying to make sense of her words. "You've got the wrong guy. I bought this cabin. I don't know you. I don't belong here." Amya tilted her head slightly, a hint of sorrow in her eyes. "You think you have no place here, but your blood remembers what your mind forgets. You cannot deny it. And neither can I." The words struck something deep within Jack. He did not understand them, but he felt them, an inexplicable connection that made his chest ache. He stepped back toward the stairs, needing air, needing space. I need a minute," he said. Amya did not move. She simply watched him, her gaze unyielding. "The forest has been waiting for you," she said softly, "and so have I. You cannot leave, not yet." Jack turned and stepped outside, the cool air hitting him like a wave. The forest was silent but not empty. Shadows seemed to twist between the trees, and the wind carried whispers he could almost, but not quite understand. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was imagining things. "This is insane," he muttered. She's insane, or I am. Yet even as he said it, he felt a pull he could not explain. Something in the air, in the rustling of leaves, tugged at his heart. He could feel that the cabin, the forest, and the woman before him were all part of something larger, a story older than him, older than the cabin itself. He returned inside, and Amya remained in the same place. She smiled faintly. "Come closer," she said. "There is much to show you and little time." Jack hesitated, but curiosity outweighed fear. He stepped closer. The moment he did, the air seemed to hum around them. Symbols on the walls glowed faintly, tracing patterns he could not understand. He reached out instinctively, and a jolt ran through him, like lightning touching his very bones. "The bond," Amya whispered. "It awakens when you accept it." Jack wanted to argue, to walk away, but the moment he looked into her eyes, he felt centuries of history, of love and loss coursing through him. Memories that were not his own flickered behind his eyes, faces, places, moments of joy and heartbreak he could not name. "Stop," he said, though his voice was barely audible. Amya stepped closer, placing a hand over his. The warmth of her touch anchored him even as the vision surged. "You do not yet understand," she said softly, "but you will. And when you do, you will see why we cannot be apart." Jack felt his knees weaken, but he stood, determined to maintain control. I can't," he said, but the words rang hollow even to himself. A sudden noise outside startled him, a rustling, almost like someone running through the trees. He turned quickly, hand reaching for the door, but Amya grabbed his arm gently. "They know you are here," she said, her voice sharp now. "They will come for what belongs to us." Jack's heart raced. "Who? What do you mean?" Amya's eyes darkened. "The spirits. The forest remembers your arrival, and so do they. You are not just here for a quiet life, Jack. You are here because your fate has been waiting for you." Jack took a step back, fear and disbelief warring within him. The quiet cabin, the peaceful forest he had dreamed of, it was gone, replaced by a reality that seemed alive, watching him, waiting for him to act. He looked at Amya. She seemed calm, yet her presence radiated power, a force he could not deny. And somewhere deep within, beneath the fear and confusion, Jack felt a strange, undeniable longing, a pull toward her, toward the cabin, toward a destiny he did not yet understand. Night fell quickly, faster than it should have. The cabin seemed to change under the dark sky, shadows stretching long and deep. Jack lit a fire in the fireplace, the flickering light making the room dance with movement. Every so often, he thought he saw shapes moving in the corners of his eyes. He spun around, but the cabin appeared empty, save for Amya, who watched him silently, her expression unreadable. "Are you going to tell me everything now?" Jack asked finally, trying to regain some control. Amya shook her head. "Not yet. The forest has rules and the past has secrets, but soon you will understand why you are here and why you cannot leave." Jack slumped into a chair, feeling the weight of exhaustion and confusion pressing down on him. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted to understand why his heart felt both heavy and light at the same time, why the pull toward Amya felt so natural, yet terrifying. A sudden knock at the cabin door made him jump. Slowly, he rose and approached it. Outside, there was nothing, just the trees swaying in the wind and the sound of whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. He closed the door, shaking. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," he admitted to himself. Amya stepped beside him, her presence calming yet insistent. "You are ready," she said softly, "whether you know it or not, and whether you like it or not, the cabin has chosen you, as have I." Jack looked into her eyes again, and something unspoken passed between them, a connection, a promise, and a warning all at once. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, a shadow moved. It was swift, silent, and purposeful. Jack froze. "They are coming," Amya whispered, her hand tightening on his arm, "and they will not wait for tomorrow." Jack's heart raced. He realized that his life, the quiet life he had imagined, was gone. The cabin, the forest, and the woman claiming to be his wife had pulled him into a story older than he could comprehend. And there was no turning back now. The night closed in, full of whispers, shadows, and a fate he could not yet name. But he knew one thing with certainty. His life, and perhaps his heart, had been claimed by the forest and by Amya. The forest around the cabin was alive with whispers. Jack had not slept well since that first night. Every sound, the wind in the pines, the rustle of leaves, even the distant call of an owl, felt like it carried a warning. Amya had stayed close, her presence both comforting and unnerving. She moved with a quiet confidence, like she belonged here and that he did not. "Jack," she said softly, as he examined the carvings on the cabin wall once again, "you need to understand what has brought you here." Jack sighed, rubbing his eyes. "I'm trying, Amya. I want to understand, but all of this, it doesn't make sense. I bought a cabin, not destiny." Amya stepped closer, her dark eyes glinting in the sunlight that streamed through the window. "You think you chose the cabin, but it chose you. Our families have been bound together for centuries. A curse, yes, but also a promise. You cannot ignore it." Jack's stomach tightened. "A curse? What do you mean?" She reached for a small, leather-bound book that had been sitting on a shelf since his arrival. "This belonged to your ancestor," she said, handing it to him. "Read it. You will see what I mean." Hesitant, Jack opened the book. The pages were old, brittle, filled with notes in a flowing script he could barely decipher. But as he read, a story began to emerge. One of two families, joined and torn apart by a curse cast long ago by a powerful spirit of the forest. The curse had bound generations together, compelling their descendants to meet, to fight, and sometimes to love, whether they wanted to or not. Jack looked up, feeling the weight of the words pressing down on him. "You mean this is all real, not just some story?" Amya nodded. "It is real, and now it is your turn. You are bound to me, Jack. Whether you believe it or not, fate has brought you here." Jack ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "And what if I refuse? What if I don't accept it?" "You cannot refuse," Amya said gently, but her tone held an edge of authority. "The forest will not let you. The curse is not punishment, it is a bond. It is part of who you are." Jack's mind raced. He had always thought of himself as independent, unshackled by the past. But the more he learned, the more he realized that his life had been shaped by forces he did not understand. Every choice, every step had led him here. And now, standing in this cabin with Amya, he felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "Why now?" Amya's eyes softened. "Because the bond has been waiting for you. Your ancestors failed to protect it. You have a chance to do what they could not." Jack felt a chill run through him. "Protect it? From what?" Amya hesitated, then spoke with quiet intensity. "From the spirits. They will come for what belongs to the bond. They will test you, Jack, and you must be ready." For a long moment, Jack said nothing. He wanted to believe her, wanted to dismiss it all as fantasy. But deep inside, he felt a stirring, a recognition, almost like a memory that was not his own. He had always been drawn to the forest, to solitude, to places that felt alive with history. And now that pull had a name. "Show me," he said finally, his voice firm. "Show me what this bond means. I need to see it for myself." Amya nodded and guided him outside. The forest was darker than he remembered, even in daylight, shadows twisting between the trees like living things. She led him to a small clearing where the grass shimmered faintly, as if dusted with silver. "This is where it began," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your ancestor and mine, they were chosen here. The spirit of the forest judged them, bound them, and then left a promise that their descendants would carry the same fate." Jack stepped forward, feeling the earth beneath his feet hum. The air was thick, heavy with history and magic. He reached out almost instinctively and felt a pulse, a heartbeat that was not his own. "It's alive," he murmured. "Yes," Amya said. "The forest remembers. The curse is not cruel, it is a bond, and it has been waiting for you." Jack's mind spun. He wanted to run, to leave, but the pull was too strong. He could feel the connection between himself and Amya, between himself and the forest, between himself and a past he did not understand. "Close your eyes," Amya said softly, "and see." Jack hesitated, then did as she asked. The world shifted. He was no longer in the clearing. He was in a vision, an image of a past life. He saw a man who looked like him, standing in the same forest beside a woman who looked like Amya. They were smiling, young, and full of hope. But then shadows fell. Spirits emerged from the trees, dark and relentless, and the man faltered. He could not protect the woman. The vision ended with her being taken and the man left alone, screaming in despair. Jack opened his eyes, shaking. That was me," he whispered. "Yes," Amya said gently, "and now it is your turn. You cannot fail again." Jack swallowed hard. He had always believed he could handle anything, but now he realized how unprepared he was. Yet within the fear there was determination. He would not fail. He could not. The forest around them grew darker, the shadows deepening as night approached. Jack felt a presence, watching him, testing him. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Amya stepped closer, her hand brushing his. "You are not alone, Jack. I am with you, but you must trust me and trust yourself." Jack nodded, feeling a surge of courage. "I'll try," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes." Amya's lips curved into a faint smile. "That is all I ask." They returned to the cabin, but the sense of unease followed them. Outside, the forest seemed to shift, shadows moving where there should have been none. Jack could hear whispers in the wind, voices that were almost human, almost pleading, almost threatening. That night he could not sleep. Every sound was magnified, the creak of the cabin, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a wolf. He sat by the fireplace, staring into the flames, trying to make sense of what he had seen, what he had felt, what he had been told. Amya watched him silently, her presence both calming and unsettling. She did not speak, but her eyes told him she understood. She had seen much, lived much, and now she was here, bound to him by a fate he could neither deny nor fully understand. As the hours passed, the cabin seemed to breathe with them. Shadows stretched long across the walls, and the carvings glowed faintly, as if reacting to their presence. Jack felt a tug at his heart, a whisper of something he could not name, something that belonged to the past and the future all at once. Suddenly, there was a sound outside, a footstep, deliberate and slow. Jack froze, straining to hear. The sound repeated, closer now, moving around the cabin. Amya stood beside him, her hand on his arm. "They are near," she said. "The spirits, they are testing you." Jack's pulse quickened. He wanted to hide, to deny it, to run. But deep down, he knew he could not anymore. The forest had chosen him, Amya had chosen him, and now he had to face whatever was coming. The shadows outside shifted, forming shapes that were almost human, almost like the visions he had seen. The air grew colder and the whispers grew louder, echoing through the trees and the cabin walls. Amya turned to him, her eyes fierce. "Jack, remember what I told you. Trust yourself. Trust the bond. You are stronger than you know." Jack nodded, gripping the edge of the table, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. The wind howled outside, carrying the voices of the past, the present, and the future. And then, in the darkness, a figure stepped into the clearing, outlined by the pale moonlight. Jack's breath caught in his throat. He could not see the face clearly, but he knew it was watching him, waiting, testing. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Amya's voice was steady but urgent. "They will not leave until they understand if you are worthy, Jack. And we must be ready." Jack swallowed hard, feeling the weight of generations on his shoulders. He had come to this cabin seeking peace, but instead he had found a destiny, one that demanded courage, trust, and a strength he had never known. The night stretched on, the forest alive with whispers and shadows. Jack and Amya stood together, bound by a connection older than time, facing an unknown threat that would test them both. And as the moon climbed higher, Jack realized one undeniable truth. His life had changed forever, and there was no turning back. The forest was alive with whispers, shadows twisting between the trees as if the night itself were watching. Jack and Amya stood at the cabin's edge, alert and tense. The moonlight streamed through the canopy, pale and silver, highlighting the shapes moving in the darkness. "They are close," Amya whispered, her hand gripping Jack's arm tightly. "We must stay together." "Alone you are vulnerable, Jack. Together we can withstand them." Jack nodded, though his heart pounded in his chest. He had never believed in spirits or curses before, yet here he was, staring into the forest, feeling the pull of forces older than himself. "How do we fight something we cannot see?" he asked quietly. Amya's gaze was steady. "You trust yourself, you trust me. That is the beginning." A rustling in the undergrowth made Jack spin. From the shadows, figures emerged, tall, dark, almost human in shape, but their faces were hidden behind mist and darkness. Their presence was cold, unnerving, and charged with power. Jack instinctively stepped in front of Amya, trying to shield her. "Stay behind me," he called, though doubt lingered in his voice. Amya shook her head. "No, Jack, we face this together. You are part of the bond, and so am I. Only together can we survive." The spirits advanced, moving silently yet deliberately. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight like embers in the dark. Jack's pulse raced. He had never felt fear like this, yet beneath it, a strange courage rose, a determination to protect Amya and the bond they shared. Amya raised her hand and faint symbols glowed on her skin, pulsing with an otherworldly light. "The bond will guide us," she said. "Focus, Jack, feel it." Jack closed his eyes, reaching inward. He thought of the visions of the past lives, of the connection he could feel with Amya. Slowly, a warmth spread through him, a heartbeat that was not his own, but that pulsed in harmony with hers. He opened his eyes, and the shadows around them seemed to hesitate. The figures stopped, as if sensing the awakening bond. One of them stepped forward, larger and darker than the rest, its presence oppressive. Jack could feel it probing, testing him. "You are different," the figure whispered, voice like wind through dead leaves. "You should not be here, the bond is unfinished." Jack swallowed hard. "I am here," he said firmly, "and I will not let you harm her." Amya placed her hand on his chest, and the symbols on her skin flared brighter. Jack felt the energy surge through him, a current of courage and power he had never known. The shadows shrank slightly, recoiling. The spirit hissed, moving closer. "You cannot protect her forever. The bond is not yours to command." Jack's hands trembled, but he did not back down. "I may not understand it all," he said, "but I know this. I will not let you take her or this cabin or the bond we share." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then from nowhere the other spirits advanced, surrounding them in a circle of cold and shadow. Jack felt the pressure of their gaze, the weight of generations pressing down on him. Amya whispered, "Trust the bond, Jack. Let it guide your strength." He closed his eyes again, focusing on the warmth that connected him to her. Slowly, he felt energy building inside like a river growing in strength. When he opened his eyes, he felt different, grounded, focused, ready. The shadows lunged. Jack moved instinctively, stepping in front of Amya, raising his hands. Light pulsed from his chest, flowing outward, pushing the spirits back. They recoiled, screeching like wind through hollow trees, but they did not vanish. Amya's voice rose in a chant, ancient words that vibrated through the air. The glow from her skin spread, connecting with the energy Jack was channeling. Together, they formed a barrier of light that held the spirits at bay. One of the spirits broke through briefly, rushing toward Amya. Jack reacted without thinking, catching it with a force he did not know he possessed. The figure dissipated into shadow, leaving only a whisper. "You are not ready yet." Amya's eyes met his, and for a brief moment all fear fell away. There was only trust, connection, and understanding. "You are stronger than you believe," she said. "Stronger than the spirits, stronger than the past." Jack felt a swell of emotion, something deeper than courage. It was admiration, respect, and he realized a growing love. He had never allowed himself to feel so deeply, yet with Amya, with the bond, he felt a strength that went beyond the physical. But the test was not over. From the shadows, the largest spirit, the leader, emerged, its presence dark and powerful. It moved with intent, circling them, its eyes glowing like molten silver. "You have awakened," it said, voice low and echoing. "But you cannot command the bond. You cannot claim what is not yours." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "We are bound by the bond," he said firmly, "and together we will survive. You will not break us." The spirit laughed, a sound like metal scraping against stone. "Then prove it." Suddenly the world seemed to shift. The ground beneath Jack and Amya trembled, and shadows coalesced into shapes of their ancestors, figures from the visions Jack had seen before. They moved around them, testing, judging. Jack felt panic rising. He was not ready for this, not fully, but Amya's hand found his, steadying him. "Do not fear," she whispered. "The bond is our strength. Feel it, Jack. Trust it." He nodded, closing his eyes, letting the energy flow through him, through the bond, through Amya's presence. The whispers of the ancestors grew louder, but now they were guiding, not threatening. He opened his eyes and saw the spirit's pause, as if acknowledging his awakening strength. The leader spirit moved forward, testing him with an invisible force. Jack felt the pressure against him, but he did not falter. He focused on Amya, on their connection, and pushed back. The energy from the bond surged, illuminating the clearing, casting silver light over the dark forest. The spirits shrieked, retreating slightly. Jack and Amya moved together, synchronized, their energy forming a protective circle. Jack realized in that moment that he had grown, not just in strength but in understanding. The bond was not about control. It was about trust, about unity, about facing the unknown together. Amya smiled faintly, her eyes glowing in the moonlight. "You see now, Jack, we are stronger together. The bond is not just our destiny, it is our power." But even as relief washed over them, the forest trembled again. The leader spirit let out a low, resonating growl, vanishing into the shadows. The other spirits retreated as well, dissolving into mist. Silence fell, heavy and tense, leaving only the moonlight and the rustling of the trees. Jack breathed heavily, sweat on his brow, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. "Is it over?" he asked, his voice shaky. "For now," Amya said, her hand still in his. "But they will return. The spirits test us not once, but until they are certain we are ready. Until the bond is fully awakened, the danger is never gone." Jack swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. Yet beneath the fear, a strange confidence had grown. He had faced the spirits, he had stood by Amya, and he had survived. More than that, he had felt the bond, felt the connection that ran deeper than time, deeper than fear. For the first time since he had arrived at the cabin, Jack allowed himself to look at Amya fully, to see her strength, her courage, her beauty, and the undeniable connection they shared. The fear and doubt lingered, but now it was tempered by trust and something more, a growing love, quiet but persistent, like a flame in the darkness. Amya looked at him, her expression unreadable yet warm. "You are ready," she said softly, "stronger than you know. But remember, Jack, the bond is not just power, it is responsibility. We must protect it together." Jack nodded, feeling a deep resolve forming inside him. "Then we face whatever comes," he said, "together." The forest seemed to acknowledge their words, the wind carrying a soft, approving whisper through the trees. For a moment the clearing was peaceful, the moonlight gentle, as if time itself had paused to honor the bond they shared. But the night was far from over. From the edge of the trees, Jack thought he saw movement, shapes slipping between the shadows, watching, waiting, patient and silent. The spirits had retreated, but the test was not finished. Amya's hand found his again. "They are still out there," she said. "And soon they will return. But now you know what it means to stand together. And soon, Jack, the bond will be fully awakened, whether we are ready or not. Jack looked at her, determination and fear mingling in his chest. He had faced shadows, spirits, and the weight of a centuries-old curse. He had discovered courage, trust, and the beginnings of love. But he knew, deep down, that the greatest challenges were yet to come. The moon rose higher, casting silver light over the cabin and the forest. Jack and Amya stood together, bound by destiny, by courage, and by the mysterious, powerful bond that connected them across generations. And as the shadows whispered among the trees, Jack understood one undeniable truth. Their journey had only just begun. The first light of dawn barely touched the tops of the trees when Jack awoke. His body ached from the trials of the night before, yet his mind burned with urgency. Amya was already awake, kneeling by the cabin window, her eyes scanning the forest. "They are still out there," she said softly, without turning. "The spirits know we are ready. The final trial is coming, Jack, and we cannot fail." Jack swung his legs over the side of the bed, taking a deep breath. "I know," he said, trying to steady his racing heart. "Whatever it takes, we'll face it together." Amya turned to him, her dark hair catching the pale light. There was a fire in her eyes, tempered by something softer, hope, trust, and a quiet strength that had anchored him since the moment they met. "We must enter the heart of the forest," she said. "It is where the bond was first forged and where it must be completed." Jack nodded, gripping her hand. The warmth of her touch steadied him, reminded him that no matter what came, they were not alone. The forest before them was dense, shadows thick, and the mist clinging to the ground like a living veil. Each step they took seemed to echo centuries of history, of lives lived and lost, of love and sacrifice that had been waiting for this moment. "This place," Jack said quietly. "It feels alive." "It is," Amya replied. "Every tree, every stone, every whisper carries the memory of the bond. You will feel it, Jack, and so will I. Only by trusting it fully can we survive what is coming." They moved deeper into the forest, guided by instinct and the faint glow of symbols that appeared along the trees, symbols that pulsed in harmony with the bond connecting them. The air grew colder, heavier, and every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, felt like a warning. Suddenly, the forest opened into a clearing. In the center stood a massive stone altar, ancient and covered in carvings. Mist curled around its base, and the symbols on the trees glowed brighter as they approached. Jack swallowed, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. This is where it all begins?" he asked. Amya nodded. "Yes, here the bond will be tested. Here the spirits will demand that we prove ourselves worthy. And here we will either complete what was started centuries ago or fail." A chill swept through the clearing. Shadows began to gather, swirling around the perimeter. Figures emerged from the mist, ghostly, but solid enough to send shivers down their spines. The spirits had returned, larger, more formidable than before, and their presence was suffocating. Jack's heart pounded, but he stepped forward, hand tightening on Amya's. "We face them," he said. "Together." Amya nodded, raising her hands as the symbols on her skin began to glow. Jack closed his eyes, focusing on the bond, on the warmth and courage that connected him to her. Slowly, he felt the energy flowing through him, through her, and into the forest itself. The largest spirit, the leader, stepped forward, its eyes glowing silver. "You have awakened the bond," it said, voice like rolling thunder. "But now you must prove that it is strong enough to endure. Only one trial remains." Jack felt a surge of fear, but he steadied himself. "We are ready," he said firmly, his voice echoing through the clearing. The spirit nodded, and the mist around the altar thickened, forming illusions of the past. Jack saw visions of ancestors, battles fought, sacrifices made, and mistakes repeated. Shadows of failure and regret reached for him, trying to pull him into despair. Amya's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "Focus on the bond, Jack. Trust it. Trust us." Jack did. He let the warmth of the bond fill him, washing away doubt and fear. He felt Amya beside him, her courage and strength flowing into him, steadying him, giving him the clarity he needed. The illusions intensified, forming phantoms of people Jack had never met but who had lived and suffered because of the curse. Their eyes were pleading, demanding that he fail, but Jack stood firm, holding Amya's hand, feeling the pulse of the bond. "You cannot break us," he said aloud, his voice strong and unwavering. "We are together, and we are stronger than any shadow." The mist swirled violently, and the leader's spirit moved forward, testing them with invisible force. Jack stumbled, but Amya's hand pulled him upright. She whispered, "You are not alone. Remember the bond." Jack closed his eyes, centering himself. He imagined the warmth flowing from Amya to him, the energy pulsing through them both, stronger than the darkness around them. Slowly, he felt the pressure of the spirit's lesson. Their attacks were met with light, hope, and the undeniable strength of unity. The illusions shattered, leaving only the leader's spirit now circling them with cautious respect. "You have endured the trial," it said. "You have proven the bond is true." Jack exhaled, feeling exhaustion and relief wash over him. "Is it over?" he asked, voice hoarse. "For now," Amya said, a faint smile on her lips. "But this is not just survival, Jack. This is redemption. You have not only faced the spirits, you have faced yourself, and the bond has guided you." The forest seemed to exhale. The shadows receded, the mist lifted, and the clearing was bathed in the soft light of the rising sun. Symbols on the trees glowed faintly one last time before fading completely. Jack looked at Amya, awe and admiration in his eyes. "We did it," he said softly. "We really did it." Amya reached up, placing her hand gently on his cheek. "Yes, Jack. Together we completed what our ancestors could not. Together we broke the curse." For the first time since he had arrived, Jack felt true peace. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of destiny, they were all gone, replaced by a quiet confidence and a deep, unwavering connection with Amya. He took her hand, holding it tightly. "I never believed in fate," he said, "but now I believe in this, in us." Amya smiled, the warmth in her eyes reflecting the sunlight. "The bond is more than destiny," she said. "It is love, trust, and courage, and now it is ours to protect." Jack felt a rush of emotion, something he had never allowed himself to feel before. Gratitude, awe, and something deeper, love. He had faced shadows, spirits, and the weight of centuries, and yet here he was, standing with Amya, whole and unbroken. The forest was quiet now, peaceful. Birds began to sing, and the first rays of sunlight pierced through the canopy, casting golden light across the clearing. The cabin in the distance seemed to glow, welcoming them home. Jack turned to Amya, taking her face in his hands. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I know one thing: I want to face it with you." Amya leaned into him, resting her forehead against his. "And I with you," she whispered. "Whatever comes, we face it together." They stood in silence for a moment, feeling the energy of the forest, the cabin, and the bond that connected them. It was a quiet, perfect moment, one of victory, of love, and of new beginnings. But even as they embraced, a faint whisper carried through the trees, soft and almost imperceptible. "Destiny is never finished, but love has claimed its place for now." Jack shivered, feeling the weight of the words, but Amya squeezed his hand reassuringly. "We have faced the worst," she said, "and we have won together." Jack nodded, pulling her close. "Then let us go home," he said, smiling for the first time in months. "Home, where the bond is strong and where we belong." The forest around them seemed to respond, the trees swaying gently as if acknowledging their triumph. The cabin in the distance waited, a safe haven, a place where they could finally rest. The curse had been broken, the spirits appeased, and the bond fully awakened. Jack and Amya walked hand in hand toward the cabin, the sun rising behind them, casting long shadows and golden light across the forest floor. They did not need words. Their bond, their trust, and their love spoke for them. For the first time, Jack felt free. Free from the past, free from fear, and free to embrace the future, whatever it might hold, with Amya by his side. The journey had been long, dangerous, and uncertain, but they had endured. And as they reached the cabin, the forest seemed to sigh, content and at peace, as if it had been waiting centuries for this moment. Jack opened the door, and together they stepped inside. The cabin was warm, bathed in the soft glow of morning light. Dust motes danced in the air, and for the first time it felt like home, not just a building but a place filled with life, memory, and love. Amya turned to him, her eyes shining. "This is our beginning, Jack, not the end." Jack smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then let us begin," he said. Outside, the forest stretched endlessly, alive with whispers and light. The bond had been awakened, the curse broken, and the love between them stronger than any shadow or trial. And for the first time, the world felt vast, bright, and full of promise.